Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 222. Do the best you can and then relax. Let things go on in a natural way rather than forcing them. Panamsa Yogananda.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's episode is brought to you by Blackbox. Blackbox is a new platform and community that is all about financial freedom for filmmakers like you. If you join Blackbox, you will be transformed from being a worker to being a maker of your own content, and you'll be making steady passive income from the global market. Blackbox currently allows you to upload your stock footage once, get it to many global agencies, and then allows you to share that passive income stream with your collaborators. Whether you want to submit old footage that's been sitting around in your hard drives or create brand new content, Blackbox is for you. It's really quite revolutionary. With Blackbox, filmmakers can concentrate on making great content while Blackbox takes care of all the business BS. Just visit www.blackbox.global to find out more. Today's show is also sponsored by Studio Unknown. Studio Unknown is a crack team of audio post professionals known for quality sound on any indie budget. Whether you need a lush surround sound mix or a quick festival submission pass, Studio Unknown can help you with all of your post sound needs, from sound design and mix to Foley, ADR, and even a custom score. Contact Studio Unknown and mention the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, and you'll get 50% off one day of ADR or 10% off your complete post sound package. Just go to studiounknown.com. All right. Thank you guys so much for your patience. I am back. We are going to be in our full functioning indie film hustling ways moving forward in the next coming months. My top secret project is done with phase 1. I will be announcing that project in the next podcast or 2. I'm just working out a couple things because I want to just prep everything ready so you guys have something to see when I talk about it. So I'm really, really excited. I can't even tell you how excited I am to share this news for you guys. So get ready in the next few episodes, and you'll be, I think, pleasantly surprised. So today on the show, we have film director, writer, actor, producer, Claudia Pickering. Now, Claudia is a Australian filmmaker that caught my eye when I read an article about her in the Huffington Post, how she was able to produce her first feature film for under $5,000. And she came over to San Francisco, shot the whole thing out. And I was fascinated with her story of how she was able to do it on not only such a low budget, but I actually saw the trailer. I was like, wow, this looks really good. I was really impressed. And I wanted to bring her on the show. I wanted to pick her brain on how she was able to do a $5,000 movie that has been distributed, has been released, has been getting a lot of rave reviews over the course of the last 6 months or so, not only in her home country of Australia, but also here in the States. So get ready to take some notes because there's some nice knowledge bombs in this episode. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Claudia Pickering. I'd like to welcome to the show Claudia Pickering, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, my dear.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate your hustle. And I heard about your movie Frisky, and I had to have you on the show because it's not very often that we see $5,000 films do as well as yours. And also I wanted to get more female filmmakers on the show. And that's why I reached out. So thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
So how did you get into this business?
Oh, goodness. I was working as an architect, actually. I did all of my study, undergrad and postgrad in architecture. Mm-hmm. And then while I was doing my master's, had a bit of an epiphany that I used to sort of, act and do all sorts of stuff when I was in high school, and that fell by the wayside when I got sort of sucked into the all-consuming world of architecture. And so I took a step back and started – well, I didn't take a step back. I continued doing architecture and went and did a bit of acting stuff that then through that I met a bunch of friends, and one friend in particular turned out to be a very close friend and collaborator of mine. Mm-hmm. And we started making stuff, and one project led to another, and then I ended up with I've actually written and produced 3 feature films, written and produced 2, and written, produced, and directed 1.
Nice.
So, it's all happened over the last few years. They've all been super low budget, but they've all been relatively good projects. So.
Nice. So you're definitely hustling without question.
My pants off. I'll tell you what. Not literally. Oh, sometimes actually, if you watch Winning Formula, which is the first feature we made, my pants off.
So how did Frisky come into being?
Frisky was just that thing where, I'd finished making Winning Formula in LA and I moved up to San Francisco because I was like, oh, I need to make money. So I was working in architecture again and, I was having just a bit of a freak out actually.
Okay.
Just slowly being like, why did I move to America to be working in architecture again? Like, I don't understand. Like, why did I make that leap? Why am I here if I'm working in film anymore? And I've got this thing going through post. Why am I sitting on my hands, like waiting for something to happen? So, I'd been sort of writing down the different concepts for things that I was really was burning a hole in me to tell the stories of, I had amazingly fiery relationships with a couple of mates and was just like, oh, this is the story I got to tell. And then I went and watched someone else's feature that they'd made for $25,000 up in San Francisco. It was just it was a screening to sort of gauge the audience response before he went into festivals. And I was like, what did you make it on? And he was like, oh, I shot it on a 7D. And he shipped all of his friends out to from California to Vermont to shoot the film. And I was just like, I loved that. I thought it was hilarious. I was totally drawn in by it. I'm like, I should be making a film like that. And I'd also been collecting a bunch of music for Winning Formula that was going through post in LA. That was it was all these pieces were falling into place. And that was a thing that was weighing on my mind, these beautiful indie music that didn't suit Winning Formula. I'm like, that's the sort of film that will actually express what kind of filmmaker I am. And my tone and my sense of humor and my sensibilities and all that kind of jazz. And so I was like, it was all forming into this idea until that night when he was like, I shot it on a 7D. And I was like, I've got a Canon 6D. I'm going to shoot my film. But I went home and checked that I had enough savings to live for the next 6 months or whatever without working in architecture. Sure. And I did. Wow. And I had $5,000 left over to make.
So, which is a fairly psychotic way of going about things, which is fantastic. But let me ask you, what made you think in your wildest dreams that you can make a feature film for $5,000 since you had never done something like that?
Well, I mean, we made Winning Formula, we had a full-on, beautiful crew, grip truck, the whole bit, Winning Formula, and the production budget for that was only $30,000.
Okay.
And it was it. But I mean, we had a grant from Panavision for it. It was that was a full-on production, and I was and I'd made a lot of sketches, sketch comedy stuff, before that cost literally nothing to make. It's just you get the right group of people together, you can just make stuff. And as long as you don't want to sort of take all of if anything comes of it, you're the only one that gets. It's we did a profit share, so it's I'm giving anything that I get, everyone splits. So it's not like I'm this sort of
mogul,
evil overlord who's forcing people to do my bidding. So there were, I was just this is totally possible. Not to mention when I was writing it, I was like, I can do this for $5,000 because that guy did it for $25,000 for one.
Right.
And I feel like I can make $5,000 stretch because I've been a cheap traveler for the last forever. But
are you a travel hacker?
No, I'm just cheap. And I don't know. That was my number. And that with architecture, with anything, you have a budget, you have to work within the budget, you make it work. You figure out the things that you have to pay for and the things that you don't up front. And that's just, it's that's how I'd been taught. So just
jumped in. Just
jumped right in.
So it was a calculated risk. I mean, you had a feeling that you could do something that you can make it work.
I knew I had the I didn't have to pay for any what are they called? Not venues, location.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm putting on this festival right now, so I'm using festival words.
Sure.
But no, it's Yeah. So I was like, so that's not going to cost anything. If I don't have to pay for cast and crew, that's not going to cost anything because they're all going to profit share. And I'm like, what does cost stuff? Food costs stuff. We'll have to rent gear, except like we've got most of the gear that we need. We don't really, you just go through the list and you go, yeah, I can do this for no money. So
it's amazing when you start stripping down what you actually have to do, what you really need to make a movie. It's you could do it. Again, it depends on the story you're telling.
Yeah, that's true. And that is really, really a huge thing about this. It's like, this is a story where you're supposed to feel like you're there with the people. It's supposed to feel really personal and really honest. And so like having something like it totally suits being a completely shoulder mounted DSLR gritty kind of thing, because that's the kind of story it is. It'd be different if you're trying to shoot some really glossy sci-fi, but that's not what I was trying to shoot. I was trying to shoot, this really sort of personal indie style thing that had really like indie music that went with it and all that jazz. So
how did you get all those like really cool locations around the city?
I just shot there.
I'm assuming you didn't permit then.
Oh Christ, no, we had no permits. We just, I don't know. San Francisco is kind of different to LA. Like you wouldn't try to do that in LA so much, because you'll for sure get a fine. We had a bunch of like film school, like IDs. Actually, a couple of from like leftover from like all our crew had like been in film school at some point.
Sure.
Or like were currently in film school. Like we had a couple of sound people who were in film school. So like if anybody was going to bust us, not that they ever really, we never really got into a position where we had to lie. But we were ready to.
Of course.
Yeah, we would have just been like, sorry, it's a film school thing. And they'd be like, okay, move along.
Right.
San Francisco, it's not an industry town like that. So people aren't like, oh, I can make money off this.
Right.
I can make money off making noise next to a film and them giving me hush money, or like, all those little tricky things people do in LA. Yeah, $800 every time you're shooting in the street in LA.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we couldn't have afforded that. That's just not something we could do. But yeah, San Francisco is just a different vibe, and we worked with that. Although we did get the cops called on us.
Did you?
Yeah. When we were shooting the scene where it's like outside, my character's got a guy from a party going down on her in the back of a car.
Yes, I saw that in the trailer. Yes, it looks fantastic.
It's a very funny scene. It's one of my favorite scenes. And it looked really suspicious. Like, like it did, like from the outside, you can imagine how sus it would have looked. They thought it was shooting like an adult film, and they were like, we don't want that kind of activity in this neighborhood. Right. And like, they're like, we've called the cops, and we just peeled out of there so fast. Yeah. But look, it's easy to peel out quick when you've got like no proper, like you've got like one LED light that's like handheld that someone's holding, and like, there was nothing properly set up. So we were this little skeleton crew that was nimble as you like. It was great.
So I'm assuming a good tip is when you're shooting something like this, you're shooting a $5,000 feature film, having a small footprint really helps a tremendous amount.
Massively. Oh God, it means you're so quick. Like it means like all of your time, like everything can move faster. It's not like for example, with Winning Formula, we had the grip truck, and it was like, cool, well, everything's tripoded. So every time you move it, like you have to move an entire tripod, or like everything's on, like there's like a track, and we've got a full on dolly. Like, you get these beautiful dolly shots and stuff, which is great. And it's really suitable for that film, but totally not suitable for Frisky. And like, we don't want to have to like move, how long it takes to move tracks.
Tracks, Jesus.
What a nightmare. So like, that's the sort of stuff where it's like, there's Christiana with a DSLR on a shoulder mount, and it's like, oh, I think we should, change that shot up a little bit. And she takes one step, and like, we're ready to roll,
And you have time to actually do what you want, is create more footage and cut more coverage and let the actors play more, so you have more, as opposed to spending an hour moving a damn track.
Yeah, which is all just that's not the point. Like the whole point of like, I think the whole point of making a film, like for me, the point of making this one was to show what kind of stories I want to tell, not to show like what my like craft is all about in terms, although I'm really proud of the cinematography that Christiana put together, particularly under those conditions. But even if it wasn't in those conditions, I love the look of the film. It wasn't about that. Yeah, it wasn't about like getting the glossiest shots and the most beautiful camera movement and it being like a Coen Brothers film where it's like a one-er.
Right. That's nice though. That's nice.
Yeah, you've just got it. Oh, it's so nice. I just did a thing like that. It was so great. But you've got to like be like, okay, what do I have to give up? What's the main thing I want to get across with this film? This is going to be like a proof of concept for me as a director and as a writer. And it's like, what are the core things that then need to get across?
Right.
And like, I don't need to have one-ers and dolly shots to get that across. Like, I just need to have bloody good performances, a fun script, and a really strong sense of story through it. And I think we've got that, and I think that's why it's been doing well. Why people like it. I'm stoked.
I feel you. I feel you. When you make a movie and people enjoy it, it's such a great feeling.
Oh, so cool.
Now, can you tell people a little bit about what the movie's about?
Oh, I'll give you the log line. I'll just give you the
Fair enough.
It's about two friends that moved to San Francisco to chase their careers, but they end up chasing tail instead.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's just about this sort of like this really, really intense friendship that is very tumultuous, and but it's all of those pressures under that, but also this feeling of like wanting to find themselves and seeking attention, and then sort of essentially giving, like, completely blowing their friendship, which was actually the thing that makes them who they are in the first place, and then sort of coming back together after that. It's very much about sort of this strong, it's about friendship rather than being about like sex, even though there's a bunch of sex in it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's really just a friendship film. I'm really proud of it. Really
awesome.
happy.
And you shot it with the Canon 6D, right?
Shot it on the Canon 6D. Yeah, and now it's been optioned to be turned into a TV show in Australia, which is great.
That's the best.
It's amazing, actually.
Yeah, we're trying to do that right now with our feature that I just finished. I'm like, hey, I would love to get it. It's a great Netflix show or Hulu show or streaming show of some sort.
Well, that's the thing. It's like once you've got, I was actually, this sounds so douchey. I was just in at Netflix 2 days ago.
Right.
Which is not something I would have expected I would say. Like, ask me that 6 months ago and I'd be like, what? I was having a meeting at Netflix.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oi, like, it's so great that there's something like, for example, if I was to go in there and be pitching Frisky as the TV show, which we're putting together with Jungle in Australia, it's like, they're like, usually we would want to see a pilot or something like that. But the really nice thing about having a feature film, as it's a proof of concept. So we get the tone, we see what it is, we understand what it's all about and like what the show will feel like. So it is actually money well spent in that regard, because you do kind of, as long as you've got like a relatively character heavy film, like you care more about the characters than you do about like the story. Well, you do want to have a good story too, but that have got strong characters that could then like play into a bigger thing. Like they want to see a pilot, but like it's ready to go. Like they're ready to see it. It's already there. Like they've got the film that they've, like the footage that they need to get them over the line. So
right.
Actually a pilot and a movie in one.
So basically one of the things that I think a good business model of nowadays is instead of trying to shoot a pilot, shoot a feature film that's based on a series that you're trying to do, and then you have at least a product that you can go out and sell while you're trying to pitch it.
Yeah, and you can go around to it'll get into festivals, even if they're little festivals. Like we were only in little festivals, and look at us. We had I didn't even enter big festivals because I was like, no way anyone's going to give a shit about this.
Right.
And which now I kind of regret, because I think maybe now with a bit of perspective, maybe I would have had a chance at one. They have wild card people that come in there.
Always.
I think it is actually a really sound thing to do, rather than shooting just a pilot, because a pilot's a hard thing to then get into a festival and get notoriety about and like get distribution to like point to the future success of the concept. It's actually just this really, it's this great thing, because then you get best of both worlds.
Now, what was your post-production workflow like with that whole thing? Did you just shoot one camera? Did you shoot two?
Only for the first 2 days or something, we shot two cameras.
Yeah.
And then we realized it just wasn't working. Like it just wasn't fast enough. It was just not a great way for us to work.
Okay.
And so got rid of our second camera and just shot single cam. But I went through and did all of the like editor's assistant stuff and like, because I'm like, I want the people who are working for free for me to like not hate their job. I want them to do the bits that they want to do because they're coming on here really trusting me like to get this project done and for it to be something to enjoy. I want them to be doing the bit of their job that they like, you know, not the shitty bit. So excuse me.
Sure.
And so they, so I did that and I like, you know, did all the data wrangling and synced all of the like the sound to the and like organized all the files into like scenes and like da-da-da. So it was all really beautiful and neat so that when Julian, the editor, came in, it was just like, boom, he could just start the stuff that he's good at, you know, which is editing. Instead of being like, I hate this job. I've spent a week like doing editor's assistant, just garbage job of like trying to make stuff, which I've done a lot of. I shouldn't call it a garbage job, but it's hard. It like does your head in. Like,
sure, no, yeah. It's look, it's no one I don't think enjoys doing assistant editing like that. They all want to be all want to edit.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and it's just like, oh man, and syncing stuff. Oh my god. Anyway, did that. So that was then it. I passed it on to Julian. He would do drafts, and then I'd sort of come in and we'd sit together for ages and just go nuts. And
what'd you guys cut on?
What's that?
What did you edit on?
Oh, on Premiere.
Got it. And now, what was your distribution plan for the film?
So I didn't really have one when we started because I didn't know anything about it. But then I met, and I was like, literally once I had it done, I was like, okay, firstly, I guess we'll do some festivals so that people have seen it. And so there's some laurels.
Sure.
And you know, I'll meet some people and I'll learn from some people at those festivals. You know, I can pick people's brains in that environment, which is great. And was actually incredibly valuable doing that. And then what else happened? So then I was just like, okay, I guess I need to approach some distributors or something. I don't know. And I'm like, trying to speak. I'm like trying to research like Distriba, you know,
I use them. Yeah, they're great. They
look great. And then I was like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I was like just trying to see. Firstly, I was like looking in Australia and just trying to figure it out. And I happened to meet really very randomly, like through like 3 different people, got passed on and met this this absolute legend named Danielle. And she ended up coming on board. She you know, graduated her master's of producing like the year before and or maybe a couple of years before and was working in a distribution company that largely does family films, full on Christian family films. And she's just like, nah, this is not for us. It's like, but you are like, I love this film and I want to sell it. Will you take a chance on me and be the first film that I have in my new company that I want to start? And I'm like, yeah, man, you seem like a great person. And that's like pretty much what the success of the film has hinged on all the way up until now, has been like just trusting people who just seem absolutely genuine and who about the project, who are really good vibes. And so, she took the project, and then once I'd signed it over to her, like a week later, she's like, oh, I'm going over to the French Riviera to like Cannes for another film that I made. So I'll be there in a couple of weeks. So I'll like speak to people about the film there. I'm like, what? You're going to go to Cannes with my film?
Yes.
So that was dope. And she went over there and like we had a bunch of offers on the film from that. And
really? That's awesome.
You know, which was cool. And then, well, I mean, it was like she met a bunch of people. It went well, and then we had to like play the waiting game for a few weeks after Cannes because everybody's like completely swamped.
Exhausted. Yeah, sure.
In like watching stuff that the people that they met there, and then I think we had like 5 offers or something. We ended up picking Gravitas. They offered us the world and we were like, cool, we'll start with the US and Canada. We wanted to do that release because it's a shot in America. It's technically like an Australian production because it was all like all the money and all the money. It's so funny.
Sure.
But like all of that sort of stuff, like I was working largely on it in Australia and like like in terms of like marketing it, and like I wrote it when I was back in Australia. It was like all this stuff that I went over, shot it, and then came back.
Right.
And because I was moving countries back to Australia 3 months after we shot, which was also a really great deadline to have. Yeah, because we screened it for the cast and crew like 2 nights before I was moving countries back to Australia. Just so that they knew that it existed. That was a really important thing to do too. They were just like, oh, thank you. It's like the color wasn't done, the sound wasn't done, but they were like, cool, we see that it exists and you're not just like some fly-by-night idiot who just like didn't finish the thing. You know how.
Sure. Oh, yes, I know.
I can't remember what sorry, I got totally sidetracked. I don't know what I was saying. Anyway.
you were moving back and you're the final, the distribution.
Oh, distribution. Yeah, so could have been doing it we could have done an Australian release first, but we were like, we think we're going to make more hype for our Australian release if we release it in America. Like it's going to be, okay, if we get a big Australian release and then release in America, America's not going to notice.
Right.
If we get a like reasonable US release and then release it in Australia, Australia will notice. Like they'll notice because it's a film that's been released in the US. So that was a very conscious decision we made to do it in that order. And we did, and that's exactly what happened. Like the release in the US went really smoothly. We had at the last minute, we were offered to have a screening the night before the release at Australians in Film, which is where we're doing this festival on the weekend. And they screened it, and the Q&A went really well afterwards, and people were frothing. And then Peter, who runs Australians in Film here, like spoke to a whole bunch of other industry people about it, and it just like absolutely blew up. Like it was like ever happened to it, and ended up like in the paper in Australia. And then that turned into this, like suddenly we were able to get Madman, who is like a huge distributor, like, well, not huge, but like one of the major distributors in Australia who do like all the movies I like, who I was like, I'm never going to have them distribute this film. And suddenly they're interested, and suddenly we've got an option to have a TV show, and it's like blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
And so you went in and pitched the TV show, or did the TV show come to you?
I like went in there. I went into Jungle having met with them like before they knew that Frisky existed, which is funny because it had been made like 2 years before my original meeting with them. And I was like, you know, because when you tell someone before a film's released and you tell them that you've made a movie for $5,000, they're like, yeah, good one. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, mistake number one, you never tell them what the budget is.
Yeah, you know, and I was like, or like, even if I didn't mention the budget to some people, because I think I saw people's faces drop when I said it. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I made a movie and it's going to get released next year. And they're like, yeah, sure thing. Never heard of it. Shut up. Get out.
Right.
But yeah, so I went in there having already had a meeting, and they're like, what? Well, yeah, whatever. Well, it was just like kind of a whatever meeting. It was fine. It went fine, but it was like, cool, you know, maybe see you around at the end of it. And then, and then when Frisky came out, they were like, oh, that stuff you said was true. Like the film is real, and we want to see, like, obviously people are liking it. So what else have you got? And so it was that where I walked in there and I was like, okay, well, these are all the things I've been working on, like developing for the past couple of years since Frisky. And they were like, well, what about Frisky, the TV show? And I'm like, what do you mean Frisky, the TV show? But now it's like, I'll never think any other way. It's like every feature I'm writing, I'm like thinking of it as a potential like TV version. Like, yeah. So
that's, I think, the future. I honestly think that's the future for indie films as well, because if you can prove the concept in a feature film, it's just so much easier for Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or any streaming service to produce a low budget version of that for like 8 episodes or a few seasons of that. It makes just the most sense in the world.
It honestly does, and they love it. They love a proof of concept. They're like, thank you for going out and making that, you know?
Right, and that you actually have a product at the end of it, not just like a short film or a trailer. You actually have something that you can go out and sell.
Yep, sure do.
Now, what's the hardest part of making Frisky?
The hardest part of making Frisky was, God, I don't know. It was like so great. That's the best time.
I said the same thing. Anyone asks me the same question about my movie, I'm like, that was just awesome. I just had a great time.
I loved it. I loved writing it. I loved casting it. I even loved people. I mean, probably the hardest part was trying to make the schedule really good so that everyone was happy with it, because I didn't want to be putting anyone out because they were all coming and doing it for free.
And what was how many days did you shoot?
It was like over 14 days.
Okay.
Like it was over a 14-day period, but within that there were days off.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know, something. Somewhere inside that 14-day thing.
A movie was made.
It was pretty quick. Yeah, and I guess honestly the hardest thing for me, scheduling does you noodle a bit, but it's kind of satisfying when you get it done and right.
Yes.
Until someone really needs to go and watch the Ohio State national championships. While you're shooting, you're like, what do you mean, Brandon Wardle? He's like, my team is finally in the national championships. You've got to change the schedule. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it for you, man. That's cool.
Wow. But that's the thing you deal with. That's what you deal with.
You deal with. Because you're like, you're too much of a legend for me to not make this work for you.
Sure.
And he gave so much to that film anyway. Anyway, so
that was the hardest part, was the scheduling?
Deliverables.
Oh
my God. And you know why it was the hardest? It's because I didn't know about them beforehand.
Deliverables probably cost more than the movie itself.
If I had known about deliverables for distribution companies, I would have been been so ahead of the game.
Sure.
You know, would have. You want to have you want to have your little marketing package. You want to make sure you've got your little bloody, what are they called? Like DVD extras and shit that you get when you're on set. We didn't get any of that. Just would have been nice. But, that sort of stuff, fortunately, because I've got a background in architecture and I'm have worked as a graphic designer as well, from that, it's like doing things like putting together all the pretty print stuff, like your nice posters and all that kind of jazz. And my mate up the street's a really good photographer, so he shot the what's it called? The poster.
Sure.
So again, it was still being a little scrappy bastard to try and get it all together, but that sort of stuff is actually really simple for me because I can use all the graphic stuff. I'm the Adobe Suite poster girl.
Sure. Now, as far as the deliverables are concerned, did you master everything, I'm assuming, in 1080, or did you do 4K? What did you master in?
1080.
1080, right? So, and you output and all your deliverables for everything was pretty much 1080.
Yep.
And that's what I try to tell everybody so much. Dude, don't worry about 4K.
What is this obsession with 4K? No one cares about 4K at this point in time, because no one can watch it. All they need to shoot to put this thing to project in a massive cinema is 1080.
1080 or 2K, and 2K is just a little bit bigger than 1080.
Yeah, it's only slightly bigger. Totally chill with 1080. I haven't ever had any kind of trouble with that. The only reason why I would shoot in 4K is if I didn't have a DP who was on point enough, and I wanted to be, and I was like, I'm going to have to crop in on this stuff all the time.
Reframe it constantly, right?
Yeah, if that's the only reason why at this point in time, with all the other technology having not caught up yet, why? And God, can you imagine the data? Oh, kill me.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a beast. It's a beast. I did my movie at 2.5K, but I shot RAW.
Oh my God.
It was about 7 terabytes when and we shot 2 cameras, so 7 terabytes when we were done.
Well, at least that's something in the future I would love to. Well, I have been now, but it is. When you're doing color correction on DSLR footage, it's tough. Fine.
Yeah, you better have a good DP.
It's going to be kind of gritty, and she shot it as flat as she could.
Yeah, sure.
But it's still you're up against it. But it's do you know what? It's a DSLR film.
Sure.
Still, it's not going to look like you shot it on an Arri Alexa.
Right.
accept that.
Accept it and move on, and just move on and, accept what you are.
Yeah, there's a lot of acceptance that needs to happen, and focus on the stuff that you need to excel at.
Now, what was the biggest mistake you made while making the film?
Oh, I think not knowing about deliverables.
Deliverables again.
They haunt me. They haunt me forever.
All right.
Oh my God. Yeah, deliverables.
Yeah.
My nightmare.
Yeah, I've been in post for over almost 20 years, so deliverables don't scare me as much, but I can see if you are not prepared for it, it could hit you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, and you will never not be prepared again.
Yes. Oh, no, absolutely. You'll always know, like, okay, I need to have my digital deliverables, I need to have my HDSR, I need to have possibly a DCP, and so on.
Oh, shebang.
Oh, yeah. And it's inexpensive too, man. They are expensive. Now, I'm going to ask you the same questions I ask all of my guests. So there's a group of questions I ask, so prepare yourself.
Yep.
These are very, very heavy questions. What advice would you give a filmmaker just wanting to break into the business?
Make a bunch of stuff.
Amen, amen, sister.
That, like, because you only gonna, I've met a bunch of people who are like, oh, I've got like a stack of scripts and I want to make one of them, and but I've just got to wait until it's the right time, until it's perfect, and all this kind of shit. I'm like, but you're not even a filmmaker yet. You haven't made anything. Like,
right.
how are you going to do the best service to that script that you love if you haven't bloody practiced? Like, you've got to practice. Like, I didn't just go and make Frisky and be like, oh, I want to make a movie, and then just make a movie. It was like, yo, I'm going to make a whole bunch of like shorts and like online content and like really, really silly comedy sketches, and to learn how to do it and then embark on doing something bigger. And yeah, it's sure I did it pretty quickly, but it's like I've really, really, really made a lot of stuff before embarking on it, because there's just shit you don't know about, like that you can't know about without having like silly little quirks that you can't read about and then understand the actual ramifications of until it happened to you. So yeah, I just think it's all about making stuff. And then once you've got your head around it, and like also that script that's the best script on your pile, like you don't know how that translates to screen until you've made one. So like make the best script on your pile, and you'll realize how to make a better script, and the other 5 scripts on that pile you won't want to make once you've made the best script on the pile. Like
right.
First, right? And then you'll get better and just move forward. Just constantly be trying to make stuff. That's all. And build your network of mates who you'll make stuff for. Yeah. Like be giving, because people are going to be giving to you. Like you gotta give back, and like, cool, do you need a hand on your set? Like, let's help each other. Like, I've got a mate who actually we just did some improv together, and she was like, hey, I heard you made a film. This was like a couple of years ago. It was like 6 months after we made Frisky. She's like, I've stalked you on the internet, and I saw that you made a movie. I want to make a movie. Well, can I buy you lunch and pick your brain? I'm like, absolutely. I love getting bought lunch.
Sure.
Because like I said, I'm a bit cheap like that. And she bought me lunch, and then I ended up producing her film, like for no money. Like I didn't get paid to do it, but I was like, man, I'm going to come and help you on this because other people rocked up and helped me, and I've got a lot to give for this, for you.
Nice.
And but like spread the love, like it's not like I'm the first person to have ever done that. It's like I had a whole crew of people doing that for me when I was doing it.
Isn't it true though? Like a lot of filmmakers have the mentality sometimes of like competition, and I can't give away the secret sauce. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like you've got to give, you got to help each other.
It's all about the team thing. And I mean, look at you just have to look at what happens in Hollywood. It's like people form these alliances. Like look at all of the guys who your James Franco crew.
Sure.
Like, all help each other make their dreams become a reality. Like they do. They all hook each other up. And like, yeah, I'll be in your thing and you be in my thing, and we'll make stuff, and we'll make all the stuff that we want. And like every project that we work on, even though it may not have your name as a film by, it's like you're still in it, and it's still a credit to your name, and you still learn from it. And God, just being on set, you learn so much. Like last year, I'd never been on set for a TV show. So I was like, rather than being an arrogant dickhead and being like, oh, but I'm a director, like I shouldn't be doing anything less than directing. I was like, I'm going to be a third AD in this little slot that I can fill for an Australian, like, government-funded TV show.
Sure.
I can see what the hell a set looks like and how they function because I want to get involved in that stuff. And it's like, I didn't get paid for that. Like,
right.
But you've just got to do stuff because you need to, or else you'll blow it. Like, you need to have some experience. You need experience. Anyway, God, I just had the hugest rant. I apologize.
It's all good. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. Now, can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
What book?
Yes.
Oh my God, Save the Cat all day.
Yes, Blake.
All day. Blake Snyder be my, like, just guiding star.
Yes.
Because, like, once you know the formula, you can break it. Mm-hmm. But you need to know the formula so it's not a total pile of shit. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I had, like, people who watched the film, they were like, oh, and, like, it was, like, who was the president of the Australian Directors Guild who really enjoyed it. She was lovely. We did a Q&A together after training in Sydney, and she was like, yeah, and, like, you know, like, structurally the film's really sound and this and that. And I'm like, oh, it was Blake Snyder. That was a beat shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, structure is so important. I mean, I'm a big fan of structure because it's not like it's become formulaic. It's like, look, this is a structure. Now you can dress that structure however you want. It's the frame of a house, but totally. Each room's going to be different, but you need that frame and that foundation.
Yeah, so that people can feel stuff, you know?
Exactly. Now, what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Lesson that took me the longest to learn. Oh my God.
I know it's deep. It's deep. I told you.
There's so many. God. Something that was really hard for me was being a blonde girl.
Yeah.
And leaving architecture where you can say to people, I'm an architect, or like, I'm a architectural designer. I work in architecture.
Sure.
They're suddenly like, oh man, you're heaps clever and you're this and that. They're like, you know, they're like, right. Oh, I thought you looked like an idiot because you're a blonde chick, but and like, I suddenly had this credibility and like, there's a whole lot of ego that comes with that.
Sure, of course.
And really satisfying to be able to do that. And so being like transitioning over to saying I work in comedy and not telling people that I'm working in architecture was a really, really tough thing for me to learn how to do.
Sure.
Because I was almost embarrassed to not be like to let go of a profession that I'd worked so hard to make. Right. But then like the further I've gotten into this, I'm like, oh, I'm good at this and I'm equally as successful as I was working in architecture.
And you're having fun.
And I'm having fun. This is the life I want to live, man.
Yes.
And like people do respect. Yeah, there's like a huge gap there where like starting from scratch after you've built something else up, like people think you're an idiot for doing it, and sure. They treat you like one. They sure. talk to you like you've done something really stupid and frivolous, and you know that you're working hard, but it doesn't look like it to them.
Doesn't matter, right?
Those pretty sketches you're putting online, that's your job now. I'm like, I'm working in a taco shop to fund that shit.
Right.
And yeah, so ego-wise, it was really hard, and like trying to convince my family like I've made a good decision was extremely hard, actually. Yeah.
Brutal. That must have been brutal, that conversation.
So brutal, yeah, especially when they're like, oh, cool, she's going to be fine. She's got a good job in architecture. She'll be great. And I'm like, actually, I'm going to move to America. I'm going to make comedy. Yeah, didn't go down well. It's great now though. I've proven myself, and that's great. But you do. It's like putting your ego aside, and also then having to prove yourself, and all of the naysaying that goes on. And it's not like for me, it wasn't a huge amount of naysaying, but it was like it was a sense of disappointment from my family that they weren't deliberately trying to give me, but it was quite apparent.
Right.
There was the artist. So that was a very difficult thing to get through. But I just learned that, you know, if you do something that you care about, you're going to do a good job of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge lesson learned.
Okay, very good. Now, what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Oh, my God.
The toughest question on the list.
Oh, how do I pick? Are you kidding me?
Just three that come to your mind today at this moment in time.
Oh, God.
It won't be on your gravestone. Don't worry. Just pick 3 that you think of.
I'm completely drawing a blank. Oh, The Castle, obviously.
Oh,
Do you know what it is?
The cat?
Well,
No, yeah, no, I don't know that film.
The Castle is an Australian film from the 90s that is one of the best films of all time.
Okay. We will look it up.
The Castle. So that would be number one. I'm a huge fan of Baz Luhrmann. I'm just going to list Australian films.
Sure. It's all good. Baz Luhrmann's awesome.
Pretty much anything Baz Luhrmann, huge fan of, except maybe Australia, which is funny because whatever. But
Yeah, that was.
love him. Oh God, and I don't want to say it, but like Pulp Fiction.
Why not say it? That movie's amazing.
Says that though, but it's like such a shit hot film.
Oddly enough, not a lot of people say that movie on the show. Believe it or not, it's only come up a few times.
They're all thinking it. Actually, I pulled the structure apart on Pulp Fiction, and it actually wasn't as impressive as I thought it was. But I'm like, man, I'm so drawn into those characters. You don't even realize how like blah some of the storylines are.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, that kind of amounts to nothing, but it's a bit of character development. That's awesome.
Yes, it is. Now, where can people find you online?
Me personally,
you, the movie, anything? Yeah.
The movies, it's all over the place. It's like, on iTunes and all the places you can find things.
Okay. Any social media accounts?
Social media, there's Frisky Movie.
Okay.
At Frisky Movie, anything, or friskymovie.com, you can find all the ways to download the film.
Okay.
And me personally, my handle is the Dark Lord because it's a Harry Potter reference because I love Harry Potter. It's TheDarclaud.
Okay, very good.
Dark Lord in Australia, but if you Americans say it's all wrong, doesn't make sense. The joke doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's me.
So, Claudia, thank you so much. I absolutely love your energy and your enthusiasm to what you're doing in your work, and I hope it rubs off on the tribe listening today because you could tell that you were just having a good time. And isn't that why we got into this business in the first place? That's
precisely why we got into it. I got into it to stop like drawing CAD lines for rich people's houses.
Claudia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Claudia really is a wonderful filmmaker, and I'm so happy that she's getting all the success that she is. So, Claudia, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing those knowledge bombs with the tribe. Now, also, guys, I wanted to give a shout out to our new sponsor, which is Studio Unknown. These guys are an amazing group of audio professionals, and they've got offices throughout the country, Burbank, Hollywood, Baltimore, and they also can work with you on a remote basis. So if you're not in any of their towns, they can definitely work with you. They're really cool. They really are indie friendly. That's why I wanted to have them on the show as a sponsor. And they're good peeps. So just check them out, studiounknown.com. And don't forget to mention the podcast to get those special deals that I mentioned earlier in the show. And if you want links to anything we discussed in this episode, just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/222 for the show notes. So lastly today, guys, not only have I been working on this top secret project, but I've got some awesome stuff coming up for the tribe. I'm going to be doing. I can't tell you. I just want to tell you, but I can't tell you just yet. But there's some big things coming up indie film hustle wise with the platform, with the podcast, with a bunch of other stuff that I'm working on the side as well. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this in a prior podcast, but I'm going to mention it again anyway. Indie film producing guru Suzanne Lyons, who's been on the show a couple times already, and I are going to be coming out with the ultimate masterclass on independent producing. So how to actually produce budgets from 50 grand all the way up to 2 or 3 million, and how to raise money, how to do the paperwork, contracts, unions, guilds, everything. So if you want to know about how to actually produce a movie from somebody who's actually produced, I think 10 or 15 movies, if not more at this point, independently, this is a course for you. This is a recording of a workshop that she has given over the years that normally costs anywhere between $2,500 and $3,500 to take. And I convinced her to let me work with her on it. I came in and did some of the post-production talk as well. And we're going to be releasing it from anywhere between $90 to $100. We're not sure just yet where that sweet spot's going to be, but it's going to be between $90 and $100, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be about 4 to 5 hours long, plus a bunch of paperwork, Word documents, PDFs, things that are invaluable, just things that cost thousands of dollars to put together that Suzanne's been doing over the years. But I cannot wait to release it. So as of right now, it's tentatively going to be released April 9th. So me and Suzanne are working feverishly to get that ready for you guys. But I wanted to announce it here today. And there might be some specials, early adopting specials, if you want to get in early, things like that. But if you're interested in jumping in early, just email me at ifhsubmissions@gmail.com. I'll put you on a list and I'll hit you guys up early so you can get early access to the course. And trust me, it is unlike any other course out there right now. And as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.